matter.
Well, that's genius.
Welcome to the RVG Podcast. You can contact the show at any time on rvgpodcast@retrovideogamer.co.uk. Well, welcome to the Retro Video Gamer Podcast, everybody. I'd like to introduce on the other end of the line, Keith.
Yeah, hi, Carl. First time on a proper podcast, I suppose, as a co-host.
Well, yeah, if you can call it a proper podcast, well, I suppose the audience would be a judge of that one. But yeah, we're sort of going to give this a go. Basically, we want to just be like talking about some of the retro games that we've played and share experiences that we've both played and all the systems that we've enjoyed in the past. And we'd also like to, in future episodes, you know, if this catches on, share your follow-up and feedback as well, dear listener. So, you know, that's really why we're doing it. We think that we could perhaps, you know, contribute something else to the retro community, and we hope that everybody will enjoy making it. That's me and Keith, and obviously you guys, the listeners, we hope that you will enjoy listening to our witterings on as well. Isn't that right, Keith?
Yeah, and although we are based from the RVG Forum, it's not just entirely from that entire community. We want to pull in as many people as possible, and you know, anyone who's got interest in retro or games or whatever stuff like that, you know, just come along and get involved.
That's right, yeah. I mean, we are a broad church, and I suppose hands across the ocean and everything else, you know. We're not, you know, I personally like the Retro Video Gamer Forum because it's a friendly community, but I don't think a community is just a boundary just by a separate URL. I think all across the community, you know, we would like everybody to get involved. Yeah, so why? Well, we've sort of covered why we're doing it, but how we're gonna do these podcasts. We're going to do it in a limited amount, and obviously look back and see how we get on with it. We have some regular section features that we'll try and crowbar in, and as they become, you know, as they become easier to do, they'll become more regular sections as well.
Yeah, I mean, we are looking to do a series of 5 just to begin with, just to see how it's accepted and what people think of it, and then if there's enough demand, we'll push on and do a few more.
Absolutely, yeah, and then the merchandising will follow after that. Keith, we'll be we'll be bigger than the BBC or the BBC Micro anyway. So yeah, yeah. So a little bit about me. I think I may as well. My name's Carl. I'm known as Retrotext on the RVG forum. I've also got forum presences elsewhere on other forums, but you know, I'm not a particularly wordy person. I don't come out with particularly long posts, but I do enjoy what other people have to say. I suppose my main passion is sort of bodging, hacking, and trying to fix things, which is more of a hardware background. But I do love the games, although I'm pretty much useless at every single one.
Does that mean you do modding as well?
Yeah.
You say hacking is all software based?
Yeah, well, yeah, it's quite interesting. Yeah, I mean, for me, yeah, it's sort of like mostly hardware. Although I am sort of trying my hand at a little bit of programming now. I'm programming Forth on a little computer that I built called a FIGnition, and if anyone knows me, they'll know that I'll try and drop that in every conversation going. So I'll have a.
I'm assuming that's a bit like the Raspberry Pi style.
On the education side, yeah, certainly. Yeah, have you used a Raspberry Pi at all there, Keith?
Only very briefly. I bought one when they first come out, more as a curiosity item. I never really got much further than that with it beyond plugging it in and firing it up. But yeah, that was a couple of years ago. But some of the stuff now you see that's been coming out for it, you know, full on built on, full main machines, full computers, tiny portable monitors built in, all sorts of stuff going on with that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it has turned into quite an elaborate little hacker's tool, because you can run sort of like a command line and any other sort of Unix distribution on it. So it does work really well. I sort of worry about the Pi slightly, because the whole thing about it being the second coming of a of a computer like the BBC that taught the first generation of people to code. I think that's getting lost a little, you know. It's sort of like becoming strapped to teddy bears and sent up with a camera on and come tumbling down.
Back in 2010, 2011, whichever one it was, the replay event, I was just going back a few years, but I actually met the designer, creator of the Raspberry Pi, and then at the time he was saying his real big push was to try and get it into education, you know, get the schools now, like I said with the BBC Micro, because the idea was there's next to no programming going on in school. I mean, I work in a secondary school, by the way.
Yeah.
Cause I'm involved in IT in one, and there's just nothing beyond like the basics of learning how a program works. You don't really go into it in any sort of detail. And I mean, I'm in my 30s now, and when I was back in school, it was all like BBC Micros and the Spectrum, you know, 'cause I was going through the 80s programming craze. That's all gone now in education. There's just nothing.
Yeah.
And like I say, when I went to this event 3 or 4 years ago, it was very exciting what the guy was talking about, because he was basically saying the idea is, you know, because schools haven't got any money.
No.
But a school can get one of these devices for about £20-30, and it's a full-on computer. You just plug in some sort of display for it, and, you know, Bob's your uncle, off you go. And it was quite exciting, because then you could be teaching kids very, very basic programming. You know, from the education side, they'd be able to expand and learn things. I mean, you could sort of say the gaming industry was built a huge way by the UK, because a lot of the great designers came out of the 80s and stuff, with all the classic games back then. I'm sure the US people are probably doing cartwheels at that, but but yeah, it's still a bit barren in education on that to this day. I mean, it's 3 years later, but they are still trying, and I think it's a very, very good idea if they could just get that footing in there.
Oh, absolutely. I think also, without being completely unfair to their efforts, I guess that it's like turning a super tanker around the best of time when you're working with government and schools anyway. So that will take a while. At least they're having that conversation about getting people to code and moving people away from death by PowerPoint. You know, I'm similar age to you, I'd imagine, Keith. I'm sort of like 38. I'll be 39 this year. And when I started secondary school, it was all BBCs in one converted science lab. And when I left, they were all RM Nimbus, and they were just plain white boxes with black screens. And I don't think the teachers really knew how to use them, and nor did we. I mean, we went in with something that we could all use and pick up and program, and that just went the other way. So yeah,
I think by the time I finished, it was the end of the 80s, but we had a grand total of 3 BBC Micros and one of those. I just completely remember this on the fly here, but one of those Laserdisc machines where the BBC
Doomsday Project.
Doomsday Project, that was it. Because I can remember, because we all had to contribute, because it's primary school, you know, and build like a detailed, it's like a Wikipedia page equivalent back then, about the school and the area.
Oh, that's brilliant.
God, I think the Doomsday whole project is actually online, so you might be able to look up your school, or if you're involved in that back then.
Well, what we'll do is we'll have a look for that, and we'll post that in the programme notes, because I'm sure there'll be loads of people that would be interested in finding out what their schools are up to as well. Because
I will say that was a blast from the past. That has completely come to my mind from random then.
Well, I just remember the size of the disc. It was like it's the first time I'd actually seen a video disc. I know people are into them for their films and stuff, but I thought, wow, it's just like a big enormous CD size, LP size CD, wasn't it?
They were. I don't know if you've ever used a laser disc player or owned one yourself.
No, I haven't used one. No.
I mean, going back a few years when I was buying a lot of different retro gear, I bought a Philips one, and it didn't cost much. I think it was about £50-60 at the time, and I was just curious because the discs were like big vinyl records, but like CDs.
Yeah.
And I was just curious what they'd actually be like, and I bought one, and then I just could not stop buying the films for it, because they were roughly about DVD quality, which for the time, you know, early to mid 90s was just amazing. But the sound quality was really, really good as well.
Yeah.
I didn't keep the collection for more than a year or two, but I built a massive one up at the end of the day. It's something I wouldn't mind getting back into, because it was actually really good fun.
Well, I guess it was a cross between like people say about LPs. I'm getting back into LPs again, so I'll have to tell you about my visit to cash convert as well, where I went in for a computer game and I came out with 150 LPs for another day. But there's something about playing the music and holding the cover, and I guess that might be the same with the with the video disc to an extent, Keith. Where
I can actually say this is about 7 months ago. I actually bought a record player.
Yeah.
Because of just as you were talking then, but I was at a car boot sale because I'm in like a sort of a country style area and they happen quite a lot, and it's just great to go and look for retro gear, and I was just looking at an LP and you go through this. You're looking at it and you're flicking the covers open, and they've usually got like a couple of pages inside, and you go through and then there's like fantastic artwork. And I just bought a couple of LPs just off the back of I had no idea what the music was like. It turned out to be absolutely dreadful later on, but it doesn't matter. They were just really great covers.
Yeah.
And since then, I actually went and picked up a decent player, I think, and I've been slowly building up a collection of my own vinyls of music I know about and like, but I still enjoy going around like places and shops and stuff, because you can still get the odd like vinyl shop dotted around and just thumbing through stuff and just finding it. And I will say, I don't think the music quality is better. It does sound better coming out of a CD, but I think with vinyls it sounds richer.
Yes.
Yeah. It might sound like a strange thing to say, but when you just sat there and it just seems to surround you more, it's just more enjoyable. It's just thicker and.
Well, no, I mean, but that comes exactly round to a retro gaming subject, doesn't it? CRT versus LCD or HDMI, because I run a main cabinet, and I've experimented putting an LCD screen on it to make the cabinet lighter so I can move it around, but it's just not a patch on the CRT screen that I've got in there at the moment. It's meant to be older technology, but it does the older games a lot more justice.
I think it depends on what you actually get, because I've been involved in retro and the community and stuff for a long time, and I've also got a YouTube channel which I've been holding on and off for about 4 or 5 years, and there's tons of videos on there. But I've had a couple of TVs as I've been recording stuff over the years, like an old I had I forget what it's called, like a Sony Bravia style. It's one of the late 90s CRTs at about 20 inch.
A flatter square tube sort of touch, like a Trinitron.
It's a tube one, but it's probably one of the better ones you could get.
Oh, right, yeah.
Around that time, because I thought it'd be fantastic for retro games. And then I had like, I'm sure everyone does, like a nice big HD TV in the house. Whenever I put the retro stuff on that, you'd either have like problems with lag. Yeah. I don't know if you've ever experienced that. I don't tend to pick it up, but if you're playing stuff like a really fast game, like which is dead responsive, like say a platformer, you will see it because you'll be pressing the keys and there'll be ever so slight lag, and it's just and you'll notice it as you're playing fast.
Yeah, I think that might something to do with progressive scan. I think a lot of people have had trouble with that just with other devices as well. They'll plug in something that sort of just came in. Just at the end of CRTs, they might just have a DVD player from that time, plug it into They're All Singing, All Dancing telly, and they seem to have, like you say, sort of a lagging problem, lip sync problems, and all sorts, really.
Well, like I said, I did used to get that a lot, but then just by chance, I borrowed a TV from a friend one time because he was moving and didn't need it for a couple of months, and it was just like an 18, 19-inch HD TV. I just stuck it in the kitchen for a few weeks. And I actually tried a NES on it at the time, and all the lag just seemed to disappear. And then as time went on, I went and bought one myself, a small one, because I thought, well, maybe it's to do with the size of the TV. And actually, all of my YouTube footage I filmed from this TV now because it looks fantastic on it, because it's a HD TV. I say, if you like CRT stuff, you'll be crying about scan lines and stuff. But I think because of the size of the TV, there doesn't seem to be either anywhere near as much lag. It's not as bad, and it actually looks really, really good.
Oh, right, okay. Yeah.
So I think I'm more of because of that, I'm more towards HD TVs now. But like I say, only in the smaller sizes.
Yeah, no, I can fully appreciate that, and I've read some threads on various forums about this, and I think there are just as many people who like the CRT who and there's just as many people yeah, well, both formats have their plus and minus points, I guess. But there's a lot of people who do like the LCDs, and but the beauty of them is they're becoming so cheap and cheerful now that you can have one almost per system that you've got collected in your little sort of collection. So
I mean, it's always the cost with them things, which is always incredible, because I can always remember, you grow up with new tech as the years go on, and I can remember seeing like big 32-inch CRT tellies, so they'd be like huge at the front, all curved and everything. There'd be absolute monsters behind to hold the tubing and things, and they'd be like £2,000 in Currys or Argos or whatever.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I don't know.
And now you couldn't pick them up for about 30 quid.
Or if you're lucky enough, someone just leaves one in your driveway, which I've had before, and they didn't even know that I was after one, but I had one left in my driveway because obviously they didn't think the bin men will pick it up from theirs. So it does happen. But yeah, there's always the stories of the people who they made a recess in their wall for their big 19-inch widescreen telly, then it becomes more or less moribund straight away when the LCDs come out. They have to convert it into a fireplace, I guess. But there's a lot of tales like that, especially with endless technology, the relentless movement of it. But so what's your background then, Keith?
Oh, it's a big one. Well, I've been. It all started with me with the Retro Gamer forums when the first mag came out, which would have been with Live Publishing in the early 2000s. It was. God, I was at college at the time. It was a long time ago.
Oh right, was that when they were back? Had the DVDs on the front, on the CDs
yes,
on the front?
Yes, it was, because I had a full collection for years.
Yeah.
And I remember stumbling on that in a newsagents and then getting a subscription. But off the back of that, I joined forums. I mean, my forum name everywhere is just Lefarius. It's always been like that. It's just something I've had for about 15 or 20 years. And I've just been around in forums all over the place with that for absolute years. And then about 6 years ago, I did a retro event called Retro North. That was for the time it was pretty huge, because I mean the only reason I did it because there was just nothing being held. I mean, like today you've got things like you've got your plays, your revival. I think the recent one was NGE or something, North Gaming. Sorry, I forget the name. But there's loads and loads of big events. But back then there was just nothing. You'd start the year off, you think, oh, what event could I go to? There'd be absolutely nothing. So off the back of that, I just hired out a pub, and we got a load of arcade machines together and a load of systems, because I remember at the time, because I had to buy a load of these myself because I was I had trouble getting people to get them all, and it was just a fantastic day. And whilst I was there, I met the guy behind Replay, who then went on to do Replay. Well, he always says off the back of coming to that event, because it was one of his ideas, and that's just gone from strength to strength. But
I must admit,
yeah.
It's got a big old forum presence as well, that event, and I notice on my Facebook page and all that, a lot of people that I know do go to it. So I'll try and make the journey up one day, make the pilgrimage up one day, perhaps. But
it's definitely worth it. I have been a couple of times. They do two now. They do Replay and Play. I think Replays is more for us because it's got the retro stuff in, and that's to use the one they always hold up in Blackpool, and then they've got another one in Manchester, which I think is just called Play, and that does have some retro, but I don't think it's as much. So because it's more as a general public event.
Oh, I see. Yeah, so it's more aimed at sort of like a broad spectrum, not just people like us who like the older gear, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, right. And I do know that you been having a go at sort of publications as well.
Yeah, I've been involved in quite a few. Around 2010, I started a collection for the NES, and I was determined to do a complete set. And I actually got up to about, I think it was 204 games, and I got up to 196. It was so close. And off the back of this, I decided to do like a retro gaming site, and Grey Fox on the forums was involved in that because he helped me do the logo and stuff. But when I launched that, I think I I always saw websites online and people would be like saying, oh, I'll do this and I'll do that and we'll have all these features and da-da-da. But I was determined not to be a site which would promise everything and then do nothing. So I actually sat down and wrote I think it was about 50,000 words just to do the launch.
Oh, right.
And it was quite an achievement at the time.
Yeah, no, I bet, yeah.
And yeah. So, I mean, when we launched, I think I'd reviewed about 60 or 70 games out of the 200 and odd. Massive thing to do. And then a couple of months in, I started to think to myself, well, I can do the writing. And then I started meeting people on the forum from that site who could write that sort of thing. And then that gave me the idea, well, rather than start asking for donations to help support the site, what if I did something like a magazine? Because at least then someone could pick it. I think I did it for £1 at the time. People could pay £1 and that'd go towards running the site. And that was the idea.
Yeah.
And that just launched a mini little empire for a couple of years.
It's a great model, definitely. And that, I think there's a theme here, sort of like picking something up, holding it, and sort of that does have a lot of appeal. I mean, there's a lot of online publications which are all really good. But I do like to see a magazine on the shelf as well. So it does look good. And I've got 2 issues of PN on my shelf that I've read. I love.
Yeah, so because no one's realised, I used to be involved in Pixel Nation as well for a while. Yeah. So because I did 2 issues of that before I left before the 3rd one came out, but. It all shut down before the end, I'm afraid.
Well, it's a great shame, but nothing ventured, and at least we got 2 on the bookcase, and the artwork on it's really good. The iconic one there was sort of like the Mario artwork in one of the issues. Is really good, really nicely detailed.
Yeah, that was a guy over in America who he did like official Nintendo stuff. I could go on about this for ages, but he did the official Nintendo style artwork, and without actually seeing the image. It's like a really adult, gritty version of Mario and Peach sat on the blocks at a strange 3D angle, and he was at the time he was a really fantastic artist. And as a cover, you want something that to be really stand out. I say on the shelf that people would see and want to buy, and I think that really did work a treat. Yeah,
oh, that's brilliant. That's good. Well, what we'll do is I'll try and get a screen grab of that artwork maybe for someone to go and see that, and we'll put that in the notes as well. We're not doing too bad, but as a listener would know, we're finding our feet doing this podcast, and we said, right, what do we really want to talk about? And we thought, you need to know who we are, but I think we could probably go on for a long time about that. So we will probably carry on telling people a little bit about us and other people that want to appear on the podcast as well. We'll be sharing their experiences as well in subsequent episodes. So what have you been up to retro wise with games or anything? Have you been doing anything with playing games or anything recently?
Well, leading up to the first show in the last couple of weeks, I think first thing I really did, I picked up an Atari ST. And you do the usual with that, tracking down disc games online. And I think out of about 10 games I actually bought off eBay, only 3 worked. Because I've been having real problems just getting working floppy disks. And it's probably because they're all starting to get to that. It was now 20, 25 years later. Yeah. Magnetic medium, it's really starting to wear out. But I gave up after a couple of weeks of trying and went down the copy route. The pirate route.
Ooh.
So I ended up buying a nice big stack of floppy disk drives and then just filling them with all sorts of titles and just working my way through that library. And in case people are wondering, I never had an Atari ST as a kid. I only ever knew growing up one person who had one about the same age as me, and I remember I used to sneak around his house all the time playing a game called Pirates. Now, that's one of my all-time favourite games. I just love that to bits. But, that was it. I could remember nothing else about it. And I've had Amigas and all sorts of computers and consoles and stuff over the years. And I thought, well, I'll take the plunge and I'll have to see what it's like. And it's not been too bad. I know back in the day, people used to argue, the usual system wars, which is better, the Spectrum, the C64, the Amiga, the ST. And then, you know, it's the same sort of thing with the ST, but having spent about a month with it now, I'll have to say, probably some people will be crying in tears about this, but I think the Amiga wins.
Well, no, that's, yeah.
Just because, to me, I just feel it's got that edge because it was out longer, it's got that better graphical push for it, and I just prefer the games for it. So I've had an interesting journey with the ST there, but I think at the end of the day I'm going to disappoint people, and the Amiga is going to be my number one choice.
Well, the way that you've just said that, really, it's sort of like you want the ST to win in ways, but you just you know, because I inherited an Amiga off somebody who went to university, and they said, here Cole, look after that while I'm away. And well, I had Pirates for that as well, and that was probably my first introduction into playing a cracked game. You know, I thought, rather naively, I thought, what did that mean? But it just meant that every time that I won a sword fight, well, in fact, I never lost a sword fight on it, and it said Cortex rules every time. So yeah, I was Pirate Cortex, and I think they were the hack. Were the hack
back in
done
the
it.
day,
Yeah.
I actually had an Amiga 600 with a 20 meg hard drive, and I remember, because my favourite sort of game back then was like strategy style or graphic adventures, and things like Simon the Sorcerer and the Monkey Island games. You know, they'd come on like 10 to 15 floppy disks.
Wow.
And I can remember being sat in my bedroom, because I had an attic bedroom when I was a kid, and I'd be sat there in front of these tiny little desks. It wasn't a proper sized desk because it's something my dad had knocked together, and then he had this tiny TV, 15-inch TV squidged on, and there's Amiga in front of it, and I had this another desk beside me filled with these floppy disks, and then I'd add an external drive on top of the Amiga, and all you would do for every single screen you went to would be swapping disks around. And I can remember at one point getting so mad because I had to swap about 10 disks in literally 5 minutes. It was ridiculous.
I bet that was hotter than an Arga oven up there, wasn't it? Changing all that round, all that wiring around. Yeah.
See, at the time, though, the exciting thing was that I had that hard drive, so you'd think, oh, well, you can just stick the game on the hard drive. But 20 meg back then was actually quite a lot, but the problem was your average floppy disk held about 1.44 meg, and when expanded, it would come to about 1.67. And if you had 15 disks, you'd fill the hard drive, so you couldn't save anything else on it. So it was just pointless.
You needed a hard drive, like 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah.
That's it. Yeah. But yeah, it's incredible how technology comes and just supports these older formats still.
Well, it is now. I mean, again, back to the Amiga, but you can pick them up now and then go out and buy like a laptop hard drive or one of them I think they're like CF drives or SD cards, and they just plug in a slot in the slide, and you've got 4 gig. I mean, like 4 gig 20 years ago would have just been mind blowing. It is now, but the entire Amiga library, I think it's about 2 or 3 gigs inside, so you could just fill an entire drive and you're off and away. You've got a full games collection.
Yeah, well, I've got Divide for the Spectrum, and so I know exactly what you mean. You think, oh, that's a big old file to stick on the CF card. Obviously, I own the original games, but yeah, you sort of drag and drop them onto your CF card, and it hasn't even touched it. It's amazing, you know. It's really good. So what was your ST gem then? Did you say it's Pirates, or did you say it's what was it, Monkey Island?
Oh, sorry. Well, no. I was looking for a few graphic adventures because the thing is, you know, with work and commitments and real life stuff. I mean, I'd love to be able to sit down and go back to some of these classics. And a couple of the graphic adventure gems I was looking at on the ST were things like, I think it's called Bat or Bats 1 and 2, and Black Duet, or Black Sect, I think it's called. These are supposed to be like the best graphic adventures for the system. But I couldn't get them working with Pirates being what they are, and that pushed me down the Monkey Island route again.
Oh, right, yeah,
and I started playing that on the ST for a bit, but I think I got about an hour into that, and then just by chance I was listening to some other podcasts, and somebody was doing an interview with Ron Gilbert, the guy behind the first 2 in the series.
Oh, that's cool, yeah.
And that just pushed me off then on an entire side interest into Monkey Island, and that's all I've been doing for the past week, is just playing my way through those games. And I ended up actually picking them up for the iPad, the special editions 1 and 2. Now, I mean, I know these games back to front. I could tell you the solutions from any point, you know, with my eyes closed and with my fingers in my ears. But going back to them now, and because I'm an adult now, compared to when I played them, I would have been a teenager, and I loved them as a kid because I thought they were hilarious. And just going back through them now, and I know why I love them so much. And because at the time I thought as a kid, I thought, well, the music was great, and it was like it created this atmosphere with like the I don't know what it is, like those drums playing and this Caribbean music, and it was just really amazing atmosphere as you were just walking around the town playing the game. Also, I thought, because when I was playing it on the SD, there wasn't that much music. So it was just the intro that drew me in, but the thing that really carried on with the games, it was the humour, because the scripts in them were just absolutely fantastic. I'm playing it back now. I mean, I've been sat there some nights and I've just been tapping away on the iPad. And this is like, it's two versions. It's got the classical version, which is the original game. Or if you swipe across on your screen, it'll bring up this new graphical, they've done it all up and made it look fancier. On the first game, I like what they've done with it, and I like the idea of it, but I think it actually looks terrible. Not the artwork, but just like the things they've done with like the main character, like Guybrush's hair. I think this is a common complaint online. It's absolutely dreadful. It sounds daft, but when you're playing these games and you've loved them for so long and stuff,
it's like a bad cover version, isn't it? Otherwise,
it's a bit of it just makes you pause as you're playing and you want to go back to the classic edition. But the great thing about them is that it's all fully voiced now. And the main guy who does Guybrush is just absolutely amazing.
Oh, right. Oh, that's good. So start me at the beginning with Monkey Island then. I mean, I'm not familiar with it, so I'll break it out of the box. So what's the plot?
Well, basically, you turn up on this Caribbean island. It's night throughout most of the game, strangely enough. And you're a guy called Guybrush Threepwood, and you want to be a pirate. And you're wearing the most ridiculous pants and boots you've ever seen. And you just go on this. It's like a mix between an old Carry On film and a bit of Star Wars story style mixed in, and with just some spot on humour. It's just absolutely fantastic. And you basically you appear on the island and you have to attend through these free trials to become a pirate. And then on your journey, you meet different people, and then there's a ghost pirate who's somebody who's dead, and then there's ghost ships, and that all ends up in a journey off to Monkey Island somewhere, which sparked off an entire series.
Right. Is that when I've looked at those type of games? Is that based on the Scum setup? Is it?
Yes. Yeah. That's I think roughly where it came from, because I think Monkey Island was the one right after Maniac Mansion, which was the very, very first one.
Yes, I've seen a lot of references to that. That's a very popular Commodore 64 game as well. Yeah, I think it is anyway. Is it a NES game as well?
It did. It had a NES conversion much later, I think. But I think they edited that right down because it's quite famous. Because in all the other versions of the games, you can microwave a hamster and watch it explode. Whereas in the NES one, because of Nintendo, they cut that out.
Oh, no. I reckon we could... actually, that's a program idea. If we get the listeners perhaps to suggest... things that have changed on the Nintendo format, because you've got the less blood and gore on the big end family friendly format, so we'll have to put that one in the ideas
an entire
bank.
Series on that.
So if anyone is listening to this and they want to, I hope someone will listen to it, obviously. If you want to send in your thoughts, you can send them in on to podcast@retrovideogamer.co.uk. That's our email, or you can post on any of the threads or any of the comments where this podcast is going to appear. Just thought I'd get that in there, because obviously we do value feedback and follow-up.
Yeah, the other thing is we are by no means experts in any way, shape or form.
I don't know if anyone's figured that out yet, actually.
I know, as I was talking to Carl before we were doing all the planning for the podcast, and he was saying to me, because he seems to think I'm some sort of expert. No, it's just the thing is, I've just played a hell of a lot, and it's like at random I'll just be doing stuff, and I'll have all these weird gaming memories. It's absolutely complete nonsense trivia. There should be stuff rooming my brain for other more important things, but it's all just stuck there over the years.
You haven't cut your grass for 9 years.
Yeah.
You've been playing computer games all this time.
But I say, by all means, we're not experts, and we don't know everything off by hand. I mean, I've read loads. I've been involved with a load of stuff with all like articles and things, with the publications and stuff. So I know a lot of history, but I don't know all the ins and outs. So I'm sure we're going to say some daft things as we go along. But like I say, by all means, that's what you guys are out there for. Just comment on stuff and get involved and have discussions. And
no, that's brilliant, and that's the thing. That's my new hobby actually, is being wrong on the internet, and I'm really good at it. Because I'll always get something slightly wrong there, but they always say about a good film director puts in a deliberate mistake. That actually proves that people are paying attention to the work. So that's my little get out anyway. So so I've been. That Monkey Island, that does sound good. I'm going to give that a go, actually. I think you've challenged me to give it a go, because I'm the world's worst at getting a game and actually not using it.
One thing I would say, the one thing I would say with the Monkey Island series is, if you haven't got the patience to deal with the puzzles and stuff, I mean, the great thing about them games back then is it was a big LucasArts thing saying, you cannot die in these games, so you can't really get anything wrong. So most of the problems were all like mind benders, but going back to them now, I mean, I know all the solutions off by hand, but if you haven't got time to work stuff out, I would by all means I would just say do it with a solution, because the writing in it is just absolutely fantastic. And even if you do it on the fastest possible way, you'll still come across some amazing jokes. But it's just one of them games to play just to enjoy and sink yourself into the atmosphere. I mean, the first game is quite short and quite brief, but it's enjoyable. The second game is like it's like the opus. It's like the Empire Strikes Back of the series. It's absolutely amazing what they do with that one. But if you play the first one, you'll push on for the second. Everybody does.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the only thing that I really stuck out, I think, was a little bit later on, and that was for the PS1, and that was the Broken Sword. I think that was the one that Knights Templar, and that was really, really good. And looking at how the Monkey Island and all the precursors, it looks like everything. That's where it drew a lot of inspiration from. In my opinion.
See, I think that was I'm not sure if that might have been a British game or a German one, but I mean, like back in the 90s, I mean, the UK was just rife for great graphic adventures. I mean, people always seem to think it's all American based, off with LucasArts, but there's stuff over there. I forget the name now of the company, but they did a game called Beneath a Steel Sky, which was like a futuristic Blade Runner style with this.
Like a dystopian
and you had like
thing,
and you had like a sidekick who was like an R2-D2 robot, except he was just really, really cheeky, and it was really, really adult with some of the humour that it would come out with, and the puzzles were just second to it, really. It was all about the script, and it was absolutely fantastic. Again, I think you can get that on the iPad as well.
Oh, right, okay. Well, we'll try and find some links for that and put that in the programme notes as well for people. So, yeah, that'd be a really good thing to do. I just wanted to share with you what I've been sort of playing, and I'm not particularly imaginative. My favourite game is Bobble, and I play it on MAME a fair bit. So I've mostly been playing that, and luckily enough, Mrs. Cole likes playing that as well, and she makes a very good player too. I don't know if you've played Bobble or you're an experienced player.
I have. By all means, it's a great game, but I always prefer the sequel, Rainbow Islands, just because I think it's more fun climbing up the rainbows.
I can't play that. It's incredible.
Oh,
right.
I
can't play it. I just don't get it. And because I first picked up the Bobble, it was I've got it for the PlayStation 1, and they've got the enhanced version of Rainbow Islands as well as the second game on it, and can't do that. I just can't play it. I just can't get my head around throwing a rainbow and walking up it. So I always revert back to type and go back into playing Bobble.
That's the classic.
I mean, I've completed it many times, and Mrs. Cole helps as well. Like I say, she makes a perfect player too. I can't even play as a player too sometimes, because you just know how to complete the level. from where you start normally. And you know, if you play it as a co-op, you do have your own separate jobs to do, especially when you get to like level sort of 96 and 97 and things like that.
Is that something you managed to play as a kid growing up, or just something you've come to in later years?
It's something that I played when I was younger. I'm a child of the seaside. I live on the coast in Essex, and where I grew up, we're on a sort of like a square mile of about 4 arcades, and it's quite funny when I read articles in Retro Gamer or things like that, and they have like a Death Race and things, and they go, oh, this is a really old arcade game, you know, and it's very rare. And we used to walk past that game in our arcades, and no one would play it because it looked rubbish back then, but you know, but they were absolute classics. And you know, just look at those articles like, oh yeah, I remember that down there. But the biggest one for me was Bobble, and it came down to us in 88, because there's a lag on all these things, obviously, when you get to the East Coast. And it was a converted track and field cabinet. It was Konami track and field right away from 84 up to 88. And they'd actually mapped all the buttons out. So the run buttons were left and right. The one player button was jump. And they managed to find another button for fire the bubble. And it looked really odd. And to the uninitiated, you just couldn't play. If you hold your hand out in front of you right now and you made the telephone sign, that's how you'd actually go left and right on that particular machine. You'd have to use your thumb and your little finger to go left and right, and then you'd have to do the Beastie Boys sign, you know, like the devil sign, to do your jump and run, because that was the space of the buttons. But you know, you got good at it, that's for sure. And the noise on the attract, you know, where that does a demo mode, you could just hear that halfway across the village where I grew up. You knew when that arcade was open, Keith.
You were, yeah, fairly lucky then. I mean, I only have because I just live in the middle of the country. I'm up near Manchester way, so there's no seaside arcades or anything like that. And we only tend to do it when, like, as a kid, you know, my parents would go somewhere like Great Yarmouth or Wales and places like that.
Would it be Blackpool up that neck of the woods as well, would it? Or Lancs?
Blackpool's sort of there, but strangely enough, we never really went when I was a kid. I don't know why.
Too close.
It's probably because, yeah.
Is it?
Plus, I'd have been probably winding my parents up all the time, trying to go off to the fair and the arcades constantly. But all I can remember is most of the arcades I played when I was a kid was like Track and Field, Wonder Boy, and the Temple of Doom game, and a bit of Double Dragon. That seemed to be most of the games I ever saw.
Oh, Double Dragon,
except for when, because we in the centre of the place where I live, there's like a huge car park next to a market. And it doesn't happen anymore, but they used to have like a travelling fair would come around twice a year, and you'd have all the typical, like the waltzers and the Ferris wheel, that sort of thing, and something called the American Eggs, which was this huge thing on a Ferris wheel you'd sit in, and then it would just spin upside down, like at 30 miles an hour. It was insane.
Well, and you pay for that, do you?
And you paid for it, yeah. I was terrified. I'm surprised nobody ever got killed in the thing, because it's a big spinning egg.
Well, they probably did, but there was no internet back then, so you didn't know.
Yeah.
So that's why we moved from village to village.
One of the great things about it, they would always have these mini arcades with them, and they'd have about 10 to 15 arcade cabs in, and you'd have stuff like Star Wars and Donkey Kong. And they would never upgrade them, and they stopped coming to the town in around about 92, 93. And I would go every year, and I would just spend an absolute fortune on. And you'd be playing Donkey Kong at 10 pence a pop, and just fantastic.
No, it's absolutely brilliant. Yeah, it is. It's but that's where I cut my teeth on Bobble. But Double Dragon's another favourite of mine, and I'd like to hear from any listeners who play Double Dragon and to this day still manage to complete it just by elbowing everybody. It's got to be you can basically defeat everybody by doing the elbow, but it's how can you put it? It's like watching it's like parking the bus. It's the arcade equivalent of parking the bus with what you do in football, just by getting 10 men behind the ball basically. So any listeners who can agree with that, by all means I want to hear from you and mention that as well. But in Bobble, interestingly enough, there are modes in the demo mode. You can press the buttons in a certain sequence to get. You can get 3 different things come up. You can go. I could tell you them off by heart, but I can't remember them quite. But so you go left fire, left bubble, left one player, and something else, and then you get a power up, and then that would enable you to have the power of the yellow sweep, which is fast bubble, and the slipper, which is speed, and you'd have that throughout the game no matter how many times you died. And the other power up that you'd have would be original game, and then that would allow you to get that'll allow you to get access to the treasure rooms, even if you died. So you'd get there, and then for I think the treasure room that you'd normally get at 50 would be a special umbrella that would move you 20 levels onto level 70. Right. So knowing that, conversation of the day would be if it's actually inbuilt in the game, is that actually cheating?
Well, I can remember when we were a kid, there was this pizza place with a double dragon arcade machine in, and there was a button on the inside of the cab which was just placed against this piece of wood inside, and it was like a free to play thing, and every time it was pressed it would add a credit to the machine. And obviously without moving the arcade machine out you couldn't get to this button, but what somebody discovered was if you grabbed the arcade machine and pulled the entire thing towards you, and then just dropped it back slightly enough whilst the guy wasn't looking, and then just let it go, the force of it would bang this button in and give you an extra credit. So, I mean, that's effectively part of the game, isn't it?
I'm just wondering what Twin Galaxies would have to say about that when you got the high score. But yeah, it's just something that it makes me think, because I actually don't enjoy Bubble Bobble as much without power up. I find the game very slow now. I'm so used to clocking the game with power up. I didn't tell you about the third mode as well. If you there's another combination you put in for super games. So when you start it, you actually have a choice of starting the whole 100 levels in super mode or in normal mode. And in one of the arcades I went to, it was a bootleg one.
Does super mode come on? Is that the one that comes on when you've finished it anyway? So it's a bit like, you know what I mean, like a second run, but a lot harder.
No, the game just finishes. I think the end credits just come up. Yeah, it says thank you very much. I think the super mode you could actually, on the American version, you can select when you'd put your quarter in. But on the European and Japanese versions, it was only available as a bootleg. I think it was Bobble rather than Bubble Bobble, and that was actually super from the start. So, but yeah, you could put it in for super mode, and again, interestingly enough, the second Bubble Bobble that appeared in my area, I live in Clacton, so it was down in another arcade in Jaywick. That was a converted Asteroids cabinet, which a lot of the MAME and not MAME, but a lot of the Jammer standards were then. They used to gut out Asteroids games and put in these new boards. They had a joystick on it, and that was actually Bobble Bobble. So, and it was fiendishly hard, because you'd get fireballs, you'd get like all the aliens and all that on it. Everything from the last 50 levels would actually be on the first 50 levels. But that's good. I've been liking that game, and did a bit of reading up on it. And there's a Did You Know box out featuring a Retro Gamer magazine. Had a look, and Miss Bobble 2. Don't know if you've heard of that, Keith.
Never heard of that.
Well, yeah, that's it. So I had a look on my ROM set. It was there, and it's a bootleg version of Bubble Bobble, but you can pick what model goes in the background. So you can pick between three lovelies that will go in the background, and the music is actually the original ending music, and that plays all the way through. So that's my next project, to play that game for a little bit anyway. But I can see straight away it's an absolute complete rip-off of Bubble Bobble, and probably the big T would probably be very upset if they see that on their manor. But yeah, there's an interesting thing about bootlegs. I mean, looking through the ROM set of what I've got, I mean, another favourite of mine is Mr. Do, and there's another Mr. Do in there where where it's called it's like a prototype, and it's a mashup between that and Dig Dug, but but it doesn't ring quite right to me. I don't think it is actually a prototype. I think it's more of a revisionist hack, really, rather than a prototype. But yeah, that's an interesting one to look at as well. So might throw that in the bin for a future idea or an episode. Interesting bootlegs that come out. So yeah, that'd be quite good. Yeah, excellent.
Yeah. So, I mean, I say my entire MAME collection these days. I've got I've got an iPad, and it's like it's like an arcade controller, and it's like a wooden arcade cabinet, a miniature one, and then you sit the iPad in it, and then it's got like a Bluetooth controller. I mean, it's very difficult unless you've got a hacked iPad to get something that will run MAME on it, and now and again, what tends to happen is that people will release MAME software and they'll call it something like iMAME Arcade, and you'll have maybe 24 hours before it disappears. It's something you've got to keep an eye on forums, and I was very lucky to get something called iMAME a couple of years back, and I just loaded my iPad up with ROMs galore. But then, of course, you get the problem. Of course, then you've got too many ROMs to play, so you just end up don't play any.
Well, I think that's the problem with collecting in general, isn't it? I mean, users like I look on eBay and that goes, I need that game. I've always wanted that game when I was a kid. You get it, and you
play it once.
Yeah, it comes out the jiffy bag and it goes back and goes next to the others, doesn't it? You think, no, it's but yeah, I think that's something about the retro interest, isn't it? It's having something that you couldn't have when you were younger. I mean, I couldn't afford these systems when I was younger, and they're just cheap enough now to afford if you're careful, to have now, and I think that's reconnecting really with your past, but in a positive sort of way. So yeah. So what's your favourite console in?
It's a tough one. I mean, because I tend to go through stages. I mean, the recent one, the last few years, of course, was the NES, because it was just always one of those I wanted as a kid, and I remember at the time, because I pestered my parents to death, and they to be honest, because they're telling me about it years later, they spent weeks trying to find one, but it was sold out everywhere, so they went and got me a Master System. Yeah. Which at the time was a fantastic system, but I mean, I was only like 8 or 9 years old, and I was gutted.
But I wanted a NES.
You were sat there smiling on Christmas Day, and you were thinking, "Where's the NES?"
Oh no, yeah,
I know.
You evil boy.
This is what kids are like, isn't it? Yeah, well, I can remember it.
Well, I mean, I got my Spectrum, because I played on my mate's Commodore 64. I played Exploding Fist on that for absolutely ages. Come back, I really want a computer. It would really help me out at school and all that, and then come Christmas Day, you open it up and it was a Spectrum, and I was delighted, but I wasn't aware of how different the games would be. You just, because it was all proprietary back then. Everything had its own programming language and all that, and I sort of understood very quickly why the systems were different, but my first full price game was Way of the Exploding Fist, and obviously the versions are very different. I was expecting a nice bit of chill out music and all that, and obviously you don't get that on the Spectrum version, so that was a bit of a shock to me. But I think I did a very good job on not actually letting my parents know that I was expecting a Commodore 64. But I knew they were dear back then anyway, and anything was an absolute bonus. Yeah. So But so with the NES, I always see them advertising the Freeman's catalogue. They were like, but it's only £1 a week, and all that. You think they're nice and cheap, but like you say, you couldn't get hold of them for love nor money.
Yeah. I mean, the annoying thing was that two of my best mates got one, of course, and I think I spent 2 years just hanging around their houses playing games. In fact, I can remember getting in so much trouble off one of them's parents because I kept completing all of his games, because I did both Zelda titles. And that's the original on the first Zelda, the original run through plus the gold run through after, which is like really, really difficult. And because there was no guides or anything back then, because there was no internet, so it was quite a feat. And then I did the sequel, Zelda 2 again, which is a really, really tough game. And I couldn't do it these days. I think it was just when you were a kid, you just got them sort of reflexes, and you can devote that sort of time to stuff. And I actually, some of the games I would just do back then, and you play them now, you can't get off the first level. I don't know what's going on. It's just age.
Yeah, I think. I mean, they are quite refreshing, the older games, because my son plays a lot of games on the Xbox, and I have a go. I'll go at a game. I go, oh, I fancy that Alien vs Predator game. Maybe that's the game I'll get good at. But I mean, the tuition. I mean, the games don't take so long to load like they used to when we put them in. But you spend twice as much time going through their walkthroughs and how to learn to do certain things. And you're thinking, this is just too much investment of my time. So you just end up going, all right, son, there you go.
I mean, we were quite lucky in a way that, let's say, with console-wise, we tended to get like all the big main ones. I mean, Japan was, compared to the rest of the world, got some really unique systems at the time. Because I think probably one of my all-time favourite retro systems now is a PC Engine and its CD add-on, because that came out like it was the late 80s. And they did the very first, I think, CD add-on for it. And they really, I mean, when you come out of like, we talk about CD add-ons, you go through all that interactive phase where they were doing them like Night Trap and terrible movie-style games. Yeah, they looked absolutely awful. But back at the end of the 80s, the CD drives come out in Japan, and they knew what they were doing when they were making the games, and they ran with it, and they made some absolutely amazing. There was none of this interactivity rubbish. There was some of it, but they didn't focus on that as the mainstay, so they really took advantage of it. And going back now as a retro gamer to some of that stuff, some of the games on that PC Engine are probably like 10 times better than probably like the likes of Super Mario World and all the top games on other systems. It really is an amazing console to go back to.
The thing about the PC Engine is it never really made much of an impact in the UK, but I guess it could. I mean, it had Hudson Soft, didn't it? That was their main software producer. Big things.
I think the problem was that the company just wasn't big enough and didn't have because it came out over here, because I've seen like PAL editions of the console, but they got next to no games on it, so it's pointless even going for a PAL edition.
What was the name of the cartridge? Was it a Who card? Is that right? Yeah.
HU card.
See, that's me reading stuff and not actually.
That was the early stuff, and then when they switched over to the CD unit, which cost an absolute fortune, but that's where all the great games were, because they had so much space on them. But I think when I had a full setup, it cost me an arm and a leg, because I had to get it modded as well, because you want to be able to play US and Japanese games, because there's enough of a difference between the two markets there where you can enjoy stuff between both, so you want to pay that sort of money. But the CD units alone, they're usually like about £100 at least. Then you've got the same price for the console, plus all the stuff that links it together. And it's very expensive. Probably about $250.
Yeah, the size of the original PCE was quite very compact. I think it was about the size of the controller as well, wasn't it? If memory serves. So I think.
Yeah, it's a bit smaller than a NES pad, I think, but just a better D-pad on it as well. I think at the time, I think it had 8 directions going around. I might be wrong on that.
Yeah.
Can't remember.
Talking of interesting titles though for these systems, the PC Engine, there was one I think I went to Retro Revolution event. I think that a chap called Steve Perry arranged, and I met some other people up there, and we found a game on there. It was, I can't even remember what it's called. It was, I think, Photo Kid, and you had to go around taking pictures of things happening. It's a purely Japanese release, but it was a lot of fun to play. You basically went through a whole scene. You had to take a picture of the most remarkable thing happening as you were scrolling across.
That sounds very similar to a Codemasters game called Cosmic Spacehead, I think, where you were walking around taking pictures of people.
So is that available on the 8-bits, is it that? Because I might give that a go.
No, I think that was a 16-bit.
Oh, right, okay.
Mega Drive and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, and I found that a lot of fun, and I think it's probably a little bit of mystique about it, because obviously it didn't get a general release here. But there was a game as well for the Famicom. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, called Mother. Yes, and I was actually just looking on the before we came online, and I thought, I so wish it's converted to English. It looks brilliant.
It was.
Ah.
Yeah. Going back about when I first started my NES collection, because you can buy like prototypes and stuff from America, and then In the early 90s, I think somebody was at a car boot sale, or what, garage sales as they call them in the US.
So, yeah.
And and they discovered a prototype, an official Nintendo prototype of a translated edition of Mother. So it was converted, and now you can buy it to this day on cartridges. And I remember because I picked up a cartridge from the US. It was all it was pirate, obviously, because it was a donation cartridge converted to a new one, but with a fancy label stuck on. It was absolutely, it was an okay game, because I played the rest of the series as well, which each one got much better as it went on. But the first game was a bit basic, but it was quite promising, and you could see where the rest of the series came from. So it's still worth playing. It's entertaining.
Yeah, because I was looking at the video. I mean, it's all in Japanese, and I think he keeps having a fight with a table lamp or something. But it just looks.
Yeah. So
I think it might be called Table Lamp Wars or something over here. But
that's how you can get. There is an English version. It's readily available. In fact, you're better off picking up the later version, because the original game was really, really difficult. You had to keep leveling up for absolute hours just to get anywhere, but somebody hacked it later. It's quite easy to get and it's just a much more playable version.
Did it just stay on this 8-bit then, or did it go up to a SNES or anything at a later date?
Well, it went all the way up to Game Boy Advance. The second one was Mother 2. It was renamed to Earthbound and came out on the SNES in the US. Absolutely tanked, I think, at the time. So that was it. That was the end of the series. Because for years, people were arguing Nintendo to release it on the Virtual Console, because they did it just last year on the Wii U, because I picked a copy up. Great game. And then I think the third one, Mother 3, came out only in Japan on the Game Boy Advance. But if you've got a flash card for the GBA, there was a group got together and made like a full proper fan translation, and it's playable from start to finish, and it's a really, really good translation as well.
Oh, excellent. So. I'll try and find some more information on that and put that in the links then. That would be really good. Yeah. Excellent. Well, Keith, we've been talking for about an hour at the moment, so we haven't done too bad. Obviously, with potential input for the next podcast, where we really want to sort of get some feedback to follow up on, that will sort of give us a lot more direction on what we can talk about. But we've got plenty of things to go on for the amount of time that we're going to run the podcast for. So there was a feature that I wanted to try and crowbar in at some point for every transmission we make, and I was going to call it sort of like play this, read this, and watch this, and it will basically be you can recommend one of each, or recommend one out of that criteria for people to go away and have a look at between podcasts, and perhaps discuss that as well.
So I would say for this week it's Bobble and Monkey Island.
And have a go at Mother as well if you can. So that would be good. Just one thing I'd like to mention in dispatches, obviously, is I'd like to thank Grey Fox for the logo design of this. Hopefully, if you're listening to this in the right places, you'll see a lovely logo that Grey Fox from the RVG Forum produced for us. Happy birthday, Zappy. We know it's your birthday on the day that we're recording, so when you're finished eating your cake, hopefully you'll be enjoying listening to this at some point. And if anybody else does come back into the show or reply in the threads, we'll be sure to try and mention them in dispatches as well. And any emails from any Nigerian businessmen, we'll try and go into your schemes as well.
Yeah, we need your input, we need your comments, because it gives us stuff to talk about and helps us grow the show.
Absolutely. So, go away, enjoy all that, and hopefully we'll catch you next time.
Yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks a lot, guys.
Bye.